So here's the first story we got from Newsweek. Trump urges death penalty for drug dealers. Quote, China has no drug problem.
Oh my.
They said Trump made the remarks in a speech he delivered in Las Vegas, Nevada, Friday during a rally for his endorsed candidates in the state's gubernatorial and Senate races. The speech was marked by two recurring themes for Trump, a demand for law and order, as well as an admiration for heavy-handed governance. He said, quote, if you look at countries all throughout the world, the only ones that don't have a drug problem are those that institute the death penalty for drug dealers. They're the only ones. You understand that? China has no drug problem. During a speech, Trump recalled asking Chinese President Xi Jinping if his country had a drug problem. Quote, I innocently and perhaps naively asked if there was much of a drug problem in China. Why would you ask? He didn't say this, but I'm saying what he was thinking. Why would you have such a dumb question as that? No, we don't have a drug problem. Why would we have a drug problem? There is no problem. Drug dealers get the death penalty. The trial goes very quickly. So instead of coming to into China, they go someplace else. We've had big drug problems over the centuries, but we don't have a drug problem at all. Now they don't deal in China, the former president said. So Matt, you were actually there. I take it.
So he said he gave us similar remarks just today.
Oh, okay. I got the old version of the story. Actually.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
At America First Agenda Conference, put on by America First Policy Institute, which I run, am co-chair of their Center for Law and Justice. And yes, this is not, he said this actually while he was president as well. This is a theme that I've heard from Donald Trump many times. And, you know, I think his sentiment is spot on. If you look at the opioid, fentanyl, drug overdose crisis in our country, we're losing over 100,000 people a year now in our country to overdoses.
Yeah.
In fact, more people die of it's the #1 killer for 18 to 45.
But these are prescribed, aren't they?
Not fentanyl.
Not fentanyl.
No. So the prescription opioids are a much smaller segment now. What's actually happening is people are that my understanding, and again, I'm not a drug user, not a drug dealer, have never used an illegal drug, and so my understanding in talking to the experts and talking to people is that you build up a tolerance to opioids, and fentanyl's an opioid, it's a synthetic opioid, and so if you don't take it, it's laced in something else you take, or if you take too much of it, that it can just pretty much wipe you out. Now, this is not we also thought about at the Department of Justice, we reinstituted the death penalty because it had been a moratorium since the Bush administration on the death penalty. And one of the things we thought about was using fentanyl as the lethal agent in order to demonstrate kind of the lethality. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure people watching are going to, get in an inner comment to tell me if it is or isn't. But
it is. Yeah.
Only you can see that. But to demonstrate just how potent fentanyl can be.
But so what does it do? Like when you overdose on fentanyl, you just kind of pass out. Is that what happens?
Yeah, essentially, my understanding is it takes your vitals down to zero. I mean, you just kind of it depresses your your heart and your lungs, and you stop breathing, and you essentially smother.
Sounds. I mean, in terms of the death penalty, that sounds humane at the very least.
Yeah, and it's pretty much what we're doing with another cocktail of drugs. And I'll give you an example. I mean, I know you don't want to do a show about the death penalty, and so I want to keep this. It should be lighter because I'm usually a fun person, but we're talking.
This is so dark.
Yeah, it's really dark, and I'm not a dark person. I'm an optimist. But we in the state of Iowa, my home state, I was the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Iowa. There's a Northern District, which obviously if you have a Southern District, that implies a Northern District. But in the Northern District of Iowa, we had a drug dealer who executed a family of 5, and including the mom, dad, and the kids. And so that he was sentenced rightfully to the death penalty, and then had been sitting in prison for over 20 years because there was this de facto moratorium, even though Congress had said and the president had signed a law saying there is a death penalty in the federal system for certain things. They weren't doing it, and the Biden administration is now not doing it either. But this gentleman from Iowa was put to death under the federal system in the Trump administration, and it was I knew a prosecutor who had done that case and had been around for 20 years waiting to see that. And he actually called me that day and thanked me and thanked the administration for, finally giving that family that was still alive, justice.
But so going to Trump's comments, and just to clarify,
Yeah, no problem.
So the article the article that I had sourced, because we had a couple of them, and I made this mistake, was that Trump said this more than once. He said it a couple weeks ago, and he said it again. We have the story here from 3 hours ago. Trump calls for quick death penalty for drug dealers. This one is actually, the headline is more overt. And so in his first speech back in Washington since he left the presidency, he called for a quick death. Yeah. I don't know. That feels a little heavy-handed, right? A drug dealer, to what degree are we talking about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to try to morally justify certain levels of drug dealing and compare and contrast that to others. If you know anything about drug dealing, it's always a pyramid scheme, right? You have the street level drug dealers that are, usually the ones that are taken out, and then you have different levels. And oftentimes, in my experience, about 2 hops get you to a Mexican drug cartel. And so if you're talking about kingpins, we already have kingpin statutes. They don't call for the death penalty. My understanding, and again, I'm not the Trump whisperer. I've spent a lot of time with him. I heard his remarks today. My belief is that he really wants to target the head of the snake, the kingpins, the ones that are getting rich and, the Pablo Escobar types, not the street level hustler. Not that they're not less morally responsible for this scourge of illicit drugs in our system. We need to have a bigger conversation also. Congress has been completely unavailable and uninvolved in the regulation of drugs. The states have taken it on and mostly deregulated marijuana, for example. This isn't the topic that we're talking about, but I have a lot of strong feelings on this. And, the federal government needs to do one of 2 things. Either join the states or most of the states and have Congress, pass a law that reclassifies marijuana, or start enforcing the law. What we can't have is these laws that aren't enforced. That because what we need in the rule of law for it to work is certainty for citizens.
I think it should be. I think pot should be legal, but I think you get bigger challenges when you get into harder stuff. Fentanyl, especially, as it's getting laced into all these drugs. Yeah. And then to be honest, I oppose the death penalty. I oppose a death penalty because the best example I can give to people is Kamala Harris deciding who gets to die doesn't sound good to me at all. I understand that there are really bad people like the guy you mentioned, right?
So, Tim, let me just, the way the death penalty works is the jury, the peers, the 12 people that decide whether the person's guilty or not, decide the penalty phase and whether or not they have the death penalty. So to seek the death penalty, that's about the only thing that actually the Attorney General of the United States can do and only can do. Everything else has been delegated in the Department of Justice. But the one thing that the Attorney General has to do is determine whether or not to seek the death penalty, in these cases. And we spent a lot of time. I mean, that is the most difficult decision that an attorney general, I think, has to make, is whether or not to seek the death penalty. And you get these recommendations from the U.S. Attorney's Office all over the country. Some are less likely to pursue the death penalty. Some are more likely to pursue the death penalty. But it's just the cases are just the worst of the worst. I mean, it's you're just like, oh my God. I mean, this can't, this fact pattern is the worst I've ever seen. Then you read the next one, it's like, oh my goodness, and this is even more horrible.
The challenge is, look, you hear a story, you read the details about it, and you're like, this person, can't be rehabilitated. They're truly the worst.
It's a violent sociopath.
But proven beyond a reasonable doubt, I don't know if I trust the state to get it right. Yeah. And then the issue is, to quote Benjamin Franklin, it's better than 100 guilty persons escape than one innocent person suffer. Yeah. The idea to me that the state would say, look, we believe these facts to be true to the best of our abilities. And you might have good people who are like, this guy did brutal things to a family, and we can't have this remain. That I totally get. And saying, so we're going to, this person has forfeit their life by taking the lives of others. The issue, I guess, is just that there's a percentage of people who are innocent who are going to be killed by the state. And I don't know, man. I'm not going to pretend to have the answers, but I can just tell you I just don't like the idea.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the system has built in tremendous safeguards, at least in the federal system. Like, there's some states and throughout American history, I think, that the safeguards weren't there. But as and I'm talking about, my experiences in federal court and in federal law and in the, as it relates to the death penalty, the federal death penalty, and there are a lot of safeguards built in. But I do share that it would, obviously we'd rather have 100 people have life in prison than have one person get the death penalty and be executed that was innocent.
Yeah,
it's a tough area, but I know this. We're not. Yes, Mary.
Is the purpose of the death penalty then to seek retribution for victims and enact justice, or is it simply by necessity to remove this person from society and any chance that they could escape prison? Because at this point, we're releasing so many criminals. I'm not sure where I stand on it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons we have, criminal prosecution and criminal punishment. Retribution is one reason. Punishment is another reason. Excluding the death penalty, rehabilitation is another reason that we have criminal penalties. So I'm not in the legislature. I was never in the legislature, and so I haven't done the balancing test on this as to sort of where. But Congress has passed a law that says there is a certain category of crimes that is eligible for the death penalty, and here's the process. And so, as a prosecutor and as the former acting attorney general, we executed the laws. I didn't have to decide, and I don't think it's appropriate actually, and that's why these moratoriums, I think, take the people through their representatives have passed this law. Your representatives, the people you voted for, have passed this law or have not repealed it, more importantly. And so, let's put that on the ballot. Let's make that an issue. Let's let if the people don't want the death penalty anymore, Tim, to your point, is let's vote for it. That's what I never understand. And this is what the left loves to do, is they love to have the executive branch under their leaders like Joe Biden, decide that certain things aren't, morally reprehensible, but they'll never take the vote because they know that mostly the American people are in a different place on it.
Republicans don't seem to do anything about it. I mean, they had 2016 through 18, and they just let Russiagate happen.
They did. I got there in October of 2017, and not a day went by that somehow the Russian collusion fable didn't affect the Department of Justice, because it was, if you remember, people, you want to forget because it was such a negative, just BS. I know I can't say what I want to say, but it was just because ultimately every night it was just some new revelation. Some leaker had said, some FBI agent or sources, or it was just this constant drumbeat of stories that in retrospect were all fake news. Yep. And so you can totally, when Donald Trump says, and points to the back of the room and says, you guys are fake news, I mean, they are. They are.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.